America's doctor, the U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy. Dr. Murthy is the first U.S. Surgeon General of Indian descent. We're lucky that he serves as the co-chair of the White House Initiative of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, along with the Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan. He's also a clinician educator and has cared for thousands of patients and trained hundreds of residents and medical students. He's a firm believer that our nation's greatest asset has always been its people. So please help me welcome to the stage U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy.
Well, thank you so much, Malik, for that kind introduction. And even more importantly, thank you for all the work that you have done to make today possible and to make this initiative happen. You really deserve a round of applause. Thank you. I know that initiatives like this do not begin with just one person, and they don't finish with just one person. But there are many people involved from the initiative, from the community, in making the Act to Change Live event happen, and the larger campaign and pledge take place. I want you to know that that work is incredibly valuable. And to me, it's very personal as well. Because like Malik, like many of us, I too was a victim of bullying when I was younger. When I was in 7th grade, I began 7th grade, which is the beginning of middle school, back when I was in school. I'm dating myself, I realize. But junior high started with 7th grade back in the day. But I began 7th grade with this sense of hope, thinking that I'm in a new school. This is going to be really exciting. A little bit nervous, but also excited about what might come, about the new people I might meet. And I remember I began taking this career wheel series of classes, which began with woodshop. And so there I was in woodshop with all of these machines, sitting at these tables, ready to get started. And what I didn't realize was that the person sitting next to me would be one of the first bullies that I ever met. And over the subsequent weeks that I was in that class, I was bullied each and every day by him as he ridiculed me for my cultural heritage, for being Indian, and for having darker skin, and for many of the things that you might imagine someone who looks different, maybe sounds different, might get bullied about. But it made a real impression on me, and while that only lasted for maybe 8 or 9 weeks, it left an impression that lasted far longer than that. And in subsequent years, I only realized how deep that experience ran when other incidents would happen where I would feel a tinge of that discrimination, but would feel a series of sort of angry moments well up inside. And that's the thing about bullying, is it doesn't just last for a moment, but for many people, it can have impacts that last for a lifetime. And that's in part what we have to guard against. I realize that my story is not unique. Many of us have lived this story. Many more people not in this room have lived this story as well. And in fact, in the United States, every 7 seconds, somebody is bullied. We know that bullying has a major public health impact, that people who are bullied tend to be at greater risk for experiencing depression and anxiety. But also people who are bullies themselves, who are the perpetrators of bullying, they too experience adverse health outcomes. They too are more likely to get in trouble with the law, to do poorly in school, to get involved in drugs and in alcohol, and also to engage in violence further down the road, especially in their relationships. So bullying is not good for anyone, and it makes it all the more important that we work together to eradicate bullying in America. But there's something bigger than public health that worries me about bullying. What worries me is that when we bully, we implicitly say to someone that your life is less valuable. We say to them that you don't matter as much. And that runs directly in opposition to our core values as a country, values which are grounded in the notion of equality, grounded in the idea that all of us, regardless of where we come from, what we look like, or what we sound like, deserves the same opportunity to live a fulfilling life as everyone else. So bullying runs counter to those values, and that is why I believe that bullying is a stain on the moral fabric of America. And our efforts to eradicate bullying are not just about public health, but they are about an issue of identity, about who we are as a nation. Now, how do we address bullying? Well, I think the Act to Change initiative and today's Act to Change live event are a great place to start. The good news is that we have more and more people around the country who have recognized that bullying is a problem, who are starting to stand up and say that we won't tolerate this anymore in our community. Not just that we're going to stand up for our own families, but we're going to stand up for other people's families as well, because we realize in the end we are one family, and what affects one of us will ultimately affect the others as well. And that's why I'm encouraging all of you today to take the pledge that Act to Change has put forward, a pledge where you will stand up for those who are bullied, where you will help the community understand more about bullying, where you will help parents and teachers learn about episodes of bullying in your school and in your community. This is important. All of us have to speak up and be a part of solving the crisis with bullying. We can't just walk by when we see somebody being bullied, because a week or 2 weeks or 2 months down the line, that person being bullied could be us, and we'd want somebody to stand up for us as well. But in addition to this initiative, when I was coming over here and thinking about bullying, I was thinking about what are the deeper roots of why people bully. And one thing that has struck me again and again and again is that the anger that leads people to bully often comes from chronic stress in their own lives. And when we peel back the layers of folks who are bullies and try to understand what's going on, we often realize that they have challenging situations at home, at school, and in their own lives, which we may not see, which they may not even recognize, but which manifest in often very destructive ways. Just a few days ago, I was up in San Francisco, where I was visiting a program that identified stress among students as a very destructive factor and was looking to address that stress. Now, this is a school that experienced high rates of violence both inside the school and outside in the community. They realized their students were deeply stressed by a lot of factors at home and in the community, but they weren't exactly sure how to address it. They tried after-school programs, they tried peer counseling, they tried sports, they tried all kinds of things, but without much luck. And then one day they actually took a leap of faith. They actually said, what if we used meditation as a tool to reduce stress and increase the emotional well-being of our students? What might happen? So they took a vote among the teachers to see how many people would be willing. The vote was almost unanimous about going forward with the meditation program, because the teachers thought, at this point we've tried everything else, why not? Let's just give it a shot. And so they began instituting a twice daily 15-minute meditation for the students. And these are middle school students, keep in mind, at the beginning and the end of each day. And what they found was something miraculous, which was that within a year, their suspension rates, which were often driven by school violence, dropped by 45%. Teacher absenteeism dropped by 30%. The students reported feeling less anxious, and they were sleeping better at night. And the self-reported happiness scores of the students went from one of the lower scores in the district to the highest scores in all of San Francisco. This all happened within a year. I had the chance to meet a student who was engaged in meditation in his school through a program just like this. He was a student who grew up in a minority community and often felt discriminated against because of his race and the color of his skin. And he told me that he took that anger out on other kids. He was a bully. But he told me after he started meditating, he found a way to be calm. He found a way to deal with the anger when it would rise up inside of him. He realized that he was not that angry person, but he had a different identity, the identity of somebody who was strong, who was peaceful, and who was confident. And not only did he stop bullying after that, but he went back and found all the students that he bullied, and he apologized to them and told them that that's not who he really was. Sometimes we have been accustomed to thinking that complex problems require complex and expensive solutions. But this example stands up to tell us that that is not always the case, that sometimes simple solutions can help us take on some of our most intractable problems. So as we think about how to end bullying in America, as we think about how to end bullying all over the world, my main message to you is to remember that the power to end bullying lies within each of us. that while policies are important, while regulations are important, that ultimately it's how we regard each other and treat each other that determines whether or not a culture, an environment that permits bullying exists or not. And that's why each of us has a responsibility to step up and to speak out when we see bullying, but also to prevent it by talking to people about the importance of mutual respect, by teaching them tools for dealing with conflict, by teaching them life skills that will allow them to be calm, peaceful, and strong, the way the young man up in San Francisco was, who I met just a few days ago. I'll tell you this in closing. When I think about my own life and about the people who have helped me be stronger, the people who have given me confidence, who have restored faith, even when I had lost faith in myself, I realized that those weren't people who had special training. They didn't go to classes on how to restore self-esteem in young people or on how to combat bullying. But these were people who, out of the goodness of their heart, recognized that relationships are the foundation of everything we do. These were my mother, my father, my sister, my grandmother and grandfather, now my wife Alice. But I mention this because each of us has the power to touch other people's lives in this way, sometimes with something as simple as a gesture or a kind word. And that ultimately can make a big difference. When I was being bullied in woodshop class all those years ago, in 7th grade, there was a young boy who actually did speak up. His name was Eric Fong. And he probably doesn't even know it to this day. But the fact that he stood up and said something made all the difference in the world to me. And that's why, now, over 3 decades later, I still remember his name. I still remember his face. I still remember what he did. All of us can be Eric Fongs. All of us can be people who help eradicate bullying from the face of America. And through the Act to Change initiative, through the work that each of us will do in our day-to-day lives, that's my hope of what we can accomplish together. Thank you so much.